Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Joes of all ages, welcome to the main event of the evening. It's Talking Joe with Chief and Steve.
Yo, Joe! Yo, Joe! Joe!
Hey, it's me, the Chief, joined by my good buddy, a South African in Australia. Where are you?
Hey, it's S-Jub7 in sunny Queensland. What's up, Chiefy? How you doing, my friend?
Well, order of the day, my mood has increased by about 120%.
Whew, why's that?
We've got a special guest in the studio, and it's none other than G.I. Joe Hall of Famer, SL Gallant. Shannon, how are you, my good friend?
I'm good.
We're so pleased to get this fabled guest on the line, the man who has drawn more issues of G.I. Joe Real American Hero than any human being in existence. Is it close to 100, maybe?
Oh, I think it's actually over that, but
Is it? It's over 100. Wowzers. Yes. So we are over the moon to have you on the show. And we will be discussing in the Comic Talk section issues 212 to 215, Death of Snake Eyes. But right up front, just want to...
Chief, spoiler, dude. How could you say that?
it's written on the cover, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Straight up front, just want to dig into a little bit of background about your history with G.I. Joe. Was it a franchise that you played with as a kid, either toys or comics or cartoons, or did that come later? And how did you get onto the book itself?
I was never into the toys as a kid because I was a little bit older for that. I was a Star Wars kid, so those were my toys. And then by the time the G.I. Joe kind of got relaunched, because my older brother used to have the big 12-inch figures. I was more into the comic and the cartoon, definitely. And that was also the early 80s and stuff, so ninjas were big, which is what pulled me into the whole G.I. Joe thing at that time.
Yeah.
So it was more that. It was more the comics and the cartoon and Storm Shadow specifically being a cool ninja. So
Definitely. Cool.
As far as the book, getting involved with the book, I ended up coming at it through, because I did a series for IDW called Mac Bolan, which was kind of like a pulp spy espionage, James Bondy type book. And I had done that, and that was when the movie was coming out, the first movie, and they were doing movie prequels, and they asked me to do that. So I was working on the prequels, and then when they relaunched Real American Hero, they asked me if I could take over the book, because apparently the first artist that started it, Augusta Padilla or something like that.
Yeah.
He was having problems communicating with Larry because of a language barrier or something.
Okay, yeah, I met him at a convention in the UK, and he did a nice little Snake Eyes sketch in the inside cover of one of my custom binds. But he actually kind of mentioned that there was some difficulty communicating between me and him because obviously English wasn't his first language. Yeah. And, I kind of said to him, will we see you on the book again? And he kind of indicated that the language barrier was a barrier to him coming back on. So, well, I liked his work there, but in a way I'm kind of glad that the barrier was there because then we got you for so long.
Oh, well, I don't want to take anybody's job, but I can't complain about the work.
Yeah. Excellent. Just briefly, I think you've mentioned this on other panels previously or other interviews, but was there a specific thing that led to you coming off the book? And is it a possibility that we'll see you again?
Well, originally what happened was I was a huge $6 Million Man fan as a kid. That was my first superhero. And there was talk about them doing the crossover, and I was practically begging to do it because I had tried to get onto the Bionic Man comic as a normal book just to draw it.
Yeah.
So my intent originally was I'd do the miniseries and then come back onto the book. Right? Well, apparently they decided to just kind of move on without me.
All right. And
I've done some covers. I did a fill-in issue. So I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, they're kind of rotating through Diaz and Robert Atkins and a couple other guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe not. It's not something I'm against.
Right. Okay. We'll dig into more depth about processes of drawing the comic and relationships with the editorial and Larry when we maybe dig into the issues themselves.
That's fine.
But right about now, I think everyone here is quite hungry, so it's time for the Snack Police.
Potato chips, crisps, biscuits and candy, washing them down with a whiskey or a brandy, chewy sweets, cookies, built around jerky, snacks running fair because we got them at our mercy. We're snackers, attackers, bad mother truckers, and we're eating all the crackers, munchers, crunchers, knockout snacks like we're heavyweight punchers. The Snack Police are in the his house.
So I have got a snack. What about you two fellas? I know S-Jubs has got one. Did you manage, Shannon, to pop down to the local grocery store and purloin some snacks?
I did.
Excellent.
But they're Japanese. I hope that qualifies.
Well, anything qualifies on this show, so that's all good. And in fact, just before we went on air, we were talking snacks, me and Steve, and I had forgotten that the segment was supposed to be snacks that you've never had before. Now, fortunately, I think all the snacks that I've had, I've never had before. And
Bullshit.
apart from the cake, the chocolate cake. Yes, I have had chocolate cake before.
Chocolate cake, quinoa, corn nibs, or whatever they were. The thing that you barrel through like 12 packets. Come on,
so maybe I have had some of these snacks before, but I've definitely got one.
Some!
I'm going to kick us off this week, and then we'll let Shannon go second. So I have a packet of Raimut Palekza Kukrdasikamané. I butchered that. I think that's Polish, but no one knows for sure.
Sounded Japanese.
These are massive puffed corn sticks. I'm going to open them up. I've got no idea. They are like giant whatsits. I'm going to have a go. Yeah, they are like, just put a piece of polystyrene, you get those polystyrene bits in your packaging to keep it all from breaking. It's
Packing
like those.
peanuts, yeah?
Packing peanuts, except they're yellow instead of white.
Are they like the biodegradable packing peanuts that if you like wet them down, they turn into mush?
Yeah. So I will not be eating the rest of this packet. That's 2 thumbs down. Oh shit! All right, I will.
What a waste.
I'll finish as much as I can.
Just save them for when you're drunk, because then everything tastes the same anyway.
Yeah. What I do have though to wash it down with is a can of Old Jamaica grape soda, sparkling grape flavour soft drink, and it does definitely look like some of the Dreadnoughts would drink. So a drink is not a requirement for this show, but because it was grape soda, we had a special guest on. I thought I'll push the boat out and let's have a go. Oh yeah, that is grapey. It is soda-y. It is just what you want to wash down the taste of this. I'm not going to pronounce it again. This corn snack thing, but
I
that's
don't
me.
think you pronounced it the first time, did you?
Touche.
Yes. No, you're right. That's 2 thumbs down for the wet kind of corn packing thing, and 2 thumbs up for the grape soda. Shannon, you've got a Japanese snack for us. Tell us more about it.
Okay, I will admit I have had these before. So it was a question of, because everything in the States, I'm sure you know, is just a nightmare of a pandemic situation. So when you go into the Japanese market now, you have to wear a mask, you have to stand 6 feet apart, and the place is about 12 feet wide and about 20 feet long anyway, so that means they have like one customer in at a time. And they do try to shuffle you through, because it is actually one of the more popular little stops in the DuPont area. So anyway, so what I've got tonight is a thing called a Karento, which is apparently a traditional Japanese treat. And they're made normally from like flour, yeast, and brown sugar, and that's it. These are apparently a variation on that called a white sugar one. So it's basically the same thing, but like I guess powdered with white sugar.
Slightly less healthy.
That's what we're gonna take. We're gonna take fried yeast or whatever flour and sugar and add more sugar.
Yeah, that's it.
Refined sugar, no less. Lovely.
Yes. That's the American influence. All right. So they kind of look. The closest thing I can describe, which probably won't make any sense to people in Europe, is a churro. Do you have churros?
Oh yeah. I know churros. Yeah.
Okay. Which usually have a cinnamon flavor. So
yes.
Let's try this.
So they're deep fried, I guess.
Oh yeah, it's not good if it's not deep fried.
That's it. More flavour.
And I would say they actually do kind of taste like a less cinnamony churro. So
sounds like thumbs up.
I would give them. Well, I've had them before. I admit, I would give them a thumbs up. They're great snack food, but you probably don't want to finish the whole bag, even though it's not that big. Just the grease alone would probably clog up a artery.
I would trade the whole pack of those for a whole pack of my Pachnischte Curry.
Yeah, don't do that again.
Yeah. In a heartbeat.
So, hi. These are good.
Good. And S-Jubs, what are you rocking?
Chief, this has been mentioned on Talking Joe before by the British contingent of the podcast. I think Ben might have brought them up. But a Jaffa cake. I've never had a Jaffa cake before.
Okay, how?
It says 10 spongy cakes covered in dark chocolate with that squidgy orangey center. Sounds a lot more like chocolate than a biscuit. But either way, it's, I believe, a tea time snack in the UK, correct?
Yeah, kind of like a sweet treat, kind of maybe with your tea. I don't know if I mentioned this before when Jaffa cakes came up in conversation, but I had a friend of mine who tried the Jaffa cake diet, which he invented, and because you're allowed, because the daily recommended fat sugar, something's 90 grams a day. What does that be? That would be saturated fat, I think. No, not saturated fat, just fat is 90 grams a day recommended allowance, and each Jaffa cake contains 1 gram of fat. So he figured he could eat 90 Jaffa cakes a day, and fair enough, that would put him on his recommended fat content, but I think that would take him way over his sugar content for the day. I think he lasted 1 day on that diet.
And ended up with type 2 diabetes. Yeah.
Well, I've ripped open the packet and pulled out the tray, and I must say, on first inspection, the chocolate looks very subpar, and the overall size of the thing is a little underwhelming, but the proof of the pudding is in the eating.
I've just got to look at the brand, because in the UK you would only want to be eating a McVitie's Jaffa cake.
Yeah.
That's the only one you want.
Well, I've got Jacob's.
Okay, right. Okay, but still a well-known brand.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Oh, a lot softer than I thought. I thought the biscuit itself would have some snap to it.
Oh,
it's just
no.
a sponge.
Come on, man.
It's the cake bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't have the best sense of taste anyway, but I really wish there was more citrus to it. But
Yes. Good
dark
shout.
chocolate and an orange always go well together. Although I find it's an acquired taste. As a child, I hated it. Now, as an adult, I'm all about that shit. So, I guess this gets 1 thumb up. Not what I was expecting. I expected more biscuit. But, yeah, I guess to a hungry man, tea is served.
See, I haven't had Jaffa cakes in a long time. I can't remember. Is the orange that synthetic tasting orange, or is it like a proper tasting
hell
orange?
yeah. It's like a jelly candy orange. It's, very, very divorced from like a real pulpy
Proper
orange. Yeah, man. Ain't gonna get no vitamin C out of these bad boys.
Every time we have a guest on, one of these things pops up. It's a G.I. Joe pop quiz. It's a G.I. Joe pop quiz. Question
I'm gonna fail miserably.
1. You've had a mysterious envelope come through the door. You open it up. There's a letter inside, handwritten. It says, "What are you doing this Sunday afternoon? Why don't you come along to a barbecue?" And it gives you an address below. So you pop along to Brocker Beach, and there it is. A barbecue is raging along. But now you have to make a choice. What do you choose to eat? Do you have Cobra Commander's pork chop, Dusty's grilled salamander, or Dr. Mindbender's croc burger?
Oh, I'm not going to win.
Well, I don't know if any of them are winning choices. Cobra Commander's pork chop, Dusty's grilled salamander, or Dr. Mindbender's croc burger.
The only loser is the vegan.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Bazooka's green salad.
Well, I only trust Dusty, but I think I'm going to go with the Commander one.
Cobra Commander's pork chop. Yeah, you think he knows how to cook up a nice pork chop?
Well, it's just harder to screw that up. I'm not going to try salamander, and God knows what Dr. Mindbender put in his stuff.
Okay, let's put a tick there. And against Cobra Commander's pork chop, we'll see if we can make that happen in reality.
No.
But right now, it's time to talk about some comics. It's time for Comic Talk.
Boom!
It's comic talk, baby. Chief and Steve discussing like crazy. Larry Harmer riding these bad boys, making sense of the wackiest toys. Listen as we talk about story arcs, making noise louder than Junkyard Box, talking about character motivations and all the various G.I. Joe fun locations.
Okay, so as previously mentioned, we are going to be taking a look at issues 212 to 215, which is the death of Snake Eyes. And you are correct, S-Jubs. I thought it was just on the inside cover, but now I'm looking at the issues and it is on the outside cover. And first off the bat, this is obviously a comic marketing ploy to sell more issues, I guess, because would it not have been better as a surprise in the issues themselves? What's your thoughts on that, Shannon?
I have to plead the fifth. I can't say that we specifically had a reason to kill off the most popular character ever in the history of G.I. Joe just to sell more books. Who would do that? That would be unethical.
Of course, if you don't advertise it on the front cover, then, where are you going to get your sales bump from?
Well, we didn't want to, scare people. You didn't want to cause a nationwide panic.
How did Larry broach the subject to you, Shannon? Like, did he call you up, send you an email? Like, this is where I think we've got to take this book.
Actually, I will openly admit that Larry and I have had a conversation once.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, Larry and I didn't communicate much during the course of my book, my run on the book. Larry kind of works off in his little cave and pops his head up every now and then, drops a script in your lap, and then leaves.
And then feedback on your issues. There's countless stories of him being a stickler for especially correct guns and armament.
Have
you seen an incorrect gun in Mr. Gallant's artwork?
No, I haven't. That's what I'm saying. I think this is primo stuff on the art front, no doubt.
Look,
and
Shannon, you've either been grilled within an inch of your life, or you have worked your craft to utter perfection. Because starting with the hardware and just spiraling out into everything, like, may I just be putting it on the record at this point that your technical accuracy, your proportions, line work, it is on point, buddy.
Yeah,
and
Steve is the resident toy expert, and
it shocks me to hear that you don't have a full collection of the toys to hand, because, like, the specific geometry of these vehicles that don't exist in the real world, to a toy fanatic like me who, like, I know the feel of these plastic toys, like the back of my hand. Like, they are intimately known to me. To see them replicated in art.
How intimately are you?
Oh man, I'm running my hand all over my tomahawk as we speak.
No.
Okay. I'm gonna jump right to the punch. The Ollie stand sequence where we see the underside of the tomahawk, I don't think has ever been reproduced in artwork before or since, and you nailed it.
Well, you actually mentioned, Shannon, on a Twitter post, you mentioned that the underside of vehicles, if you didn't obviously have them to hand, was the most difficult part to reference, obviously.
Yeah,
case in point.
It is, yeah.
You nailed it, buddy. Even down to the little thumb wheel, which activates the winch. Unbelievable.
And that's the thing is when I first came on the book, because of the problems with Padilla, because of the language thing, the editor at the time told me, look, Larry is very specific about weaponry. So that's something you got to get right. Like, if he says whatever gun, use that gun. Don't deviate from that. And so I tried very often to try and get every detail on the gun right. There was only one time that Larry made me change a gun, and that was because he hadn't actually indicated what kind of gun he wanted in the script. And so I put one in, and he was like, oh, that's not high enough caliber. It's not going to go through that window. You got to change that. And so I went back and changed it. As far as the toys go, that was the other thing. It's like, I knew that's what G.I. Joe fans are into. They're into the toys, right? And so the toys have to be accurate. Because everybody I knew, just as a fan, like before I was on the book, their biggest complaint with anything toy-related is that it doesn't look like the toys. Which is why you don't see me drawing Transformers, because my brain would explode. Trying to get, like, every little rivet in the same spot and every little, But that was the main thing I wanted to do with the Joe book, was make sure I got the toys accurate. And the other problem is which version. So I always kind of defaulted to the original version just for safety's sake.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, that underside shot, because I don't own the toys, most of them, that's the hard shot to find. So you end up going down the rabbit hole for hours looking for that one guy that posted a picture of the bottom side of it on an eBay account. You know,
Amazing how eBay does come to our rescue in terms of sourcing images. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
funny. It's the plethora of pictures of toys. But yeah, once again, doff of the hat to you, sir. I've on record said it a number of times that like this guy must have an insane toy collection.
Yeah, you say it every week. You say it every week, so yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. He's just extremely good at what he does. So your attention to detail and the hours, the lifetime that you've spent perfecting everything, it's appreciated.
well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Just before we dig into the meat inside, not the meat of the croc burger, but the meat inside the covers of these issues, just looking at the covers and talking about the covers in general, is that a case of Larry does the pencils and then, you know, you're effectively fleshing out that, or do you ever get to suggest a cover to Larry?
Larry was doing those sketch covers for a long time. I don't know if you guys got him over there or not.
Yeah.
But they were doing variants where he would do a sketch and then I would do a fleshed out version. And that's it. At first it started out I was doing my own. Like the first cover I think I did was the Baroness on
the rug, that one?
Yeah, was it Frostbite? I can't remember. It was one of the Joes. Like it was basically his uniform.
Yeah.
And then later on they started having Larry do the sketch cover, so I was following Larry's. And then he kind of decided he didn't want to do that anymore. And so then I started doing the covers on my own again. And I think for this run, it was just my suggestions to the editor. Larry is kind of like, people think he controls the book in a lot of ways, and in a lot of ways he does, and in a lot of ways he doesn't. Basically, the script is what he is in control of. Like, you basically don't question Larry when it comes to the script. But as far as like the actual production of the rest of the book, he's kind of hands off because I've done my job, I've written it, I'm done with it.
Right, okay, on to the next one.
Yeah.
He did do a sketch for issue 213, which you then completed, and that was the death skull head peering over the chessboard with Serpentor on the one side and Snake Eyes, Scarlet, and Roadblock on the the
Yeah, and 212 as well.
Oh, all right. Was there a sketch
I'm looking at it. I've got the retailer incentive cover here. Yeah. That's interesting, actually, because I didn't pick up until literally 2 minutes ago that on that cover, obviously you've got Outback kind of waving the troops on bazooka, and then you've also got this forearm which has the Arashikage tattoo, the hexagram on the forearm. But at this point in time, we don't know that that's Sean, do we?
No, that was what it was hinting at.
Yeah, of course.
Well,
of course.
he's brandishing the was it the Sykes Fairburn bayonet or dagger?
Yeah, which
that Snake Eyes gave him. Which once again, you must have had some insane reference material. Did Larry send you anything? Because getting the stamp on the blade, the FS, also incredible attention to detail.
That's another one of those situations where Larry's is, this is the knife. This is the type of knife. And one thing that guys that are into guns and knives do is post a lot of pictures of their collections.
I see.
So, especially guys in the States, they're very proud of their personal armories.
Plenty of source material there.
Yes.
Yes. You say you don't draw Transformers, but, come on. There's Jetfire here for a start, isn't there?
Well, this whole kind of arc of issues where they kept hinting that there was going to be Transformer-type bots in it, it was a nightmare for me.
Yeah.
Like I said, I want things to look consistent. It's like the pit. Like I tried to envision when they remodeled the pit and had the new headquarter area, like the new command area where it was like elevated and everything. And that was kind of loosely based on Robert Atkins' redesign of it from the reboot that he did, that Chuck Dixon did.
Yeah.
So I was trying to kind of link the series a little bit, but in my head, I try to keep those things consistent so that when it appears later on, like 10 issues down the road, you're not going, well, where the hell is it now? So those things I try to be consistent with. I try to keep those details consistent, and that's the problem with the Transformers. Is to me, my old man brain can't wrap it around. This is a different bot from that bot. They look the same.
Yeah.
It's not like the Joe vehicles, which look totally different. So.
Yeah. And you're also having to deal in this arc, especially the first couple of issues, having to deal with lots of different uniform troops. So, we've got the Red Shadows, we've got the Blue Ninjas, there's multiple different types of Viper. So, that's got your work cut out for you just there, maintaining the consistency of all these different troop types.
Yeah, you guys need to post more pictures of the Red Shadow stuff. Those were the things that were hard to find.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. From source, yeah. I mean, look, they look, don't want to wax lyrical, every other sentence, but you've absolutely destroyed it here. They look amazing. They look on point. They are, just what I envision the action figure doing if it was fully articulated and, doing some of the stuff in this issue. So
Thank you. I hope so. I was trying.
I tell you what I do like. I do like a bit here where Larry's written a bit of dialogue, and the red shadows, they're in the base, and the second lot of troops have just been captured by the G.I. Joe guys, and they put them in the red shadow uniforms. Now they're disguised as a Toxo Viper, a Techno Viper, and Tele Viper. And I think Red Laser says, judging from the helmet marks and gear calluses, they're now dressed as 2 Techno Vipers, a Tele Viper, and a Toxo Viper. A nice way of identifying people from their helmet marks and gear calluses.
Ouch.
Very cool. Yeah. And you've even drawn, like on Throwdown's face, like indentations from where the Toxo Viper helmet would have been. Very cool.
I try. I appreciate you noticing.
Yeah, love that.
I couldn't help but notice Mr. Brown, the colorist, the lovingly reproduced Saw Viper that you drew.
Oh, on page
you colored
1.
it as a Toxo Viper. The colors are incredible and well matched, but they're just the wrong figure. That must have been a constant headache, particularly in the coloring process.
Yeah, obviously, quick shout out to Brian Shearer on inks and Jay Brown on colours and Tom Lang on letters as well. But yeah, I had that on my notes. Saw Viper page 1. He's got kind of the purple and green with the red gloves and the red trimmings around the helmet. And I didn't know because
Forgive us, Shannon, if this means absolutely nothing to you.
No,
at this
that's fine.
But this is a bit of background for Shannon. Like I said earlier, Steve is the resident toy expert. Pretty much knows everything. I am not that well versed in the toys or the cartoons, but was just in the UK, grew up reading Action Force and G.I. Joe when I could get it. So I was very much a comic based guy. Steve's kind of an all rounder, and so when I saw this on page 1, this Saw Viper, I had no idea. I thought, maybe this is like a later version of the Saw Viper that had that colour scheme. So I was waiting to see if Steve would bring it up in this discussion, and I'm glad that you did. So yeah.
A lot of it too. The hard part with a book, and I am notorious for George Perez used to call it being a masturbating artist, where you put so much detail in something that's never going to see print. It's going to be hidden by a word balloon, or it's not going to get inked fully, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm notorious for putting too much detail on a page. Like Brian actually wrote, he would send me fake pages with extra notes on them. And I think in one scene where Duke shows up in one of the issues, there's no backgrounds. And Brian literally was sending me pages of notes saying, thank you for no backgrounds. Thank you for no backgrounds. But that's the thing is, Larry kind of takes his time on the script. And then as a penciler, I take my time on the script. Brian takes his time on the book. And then the last guys, their time crunch keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, of course.
So for the color, sometimes it's just a nightmare. For a while, we were doing 2 books a month for whatever reason. And so it was literally just crank it out, get it out the door. So sometimes that's how a lot of that stuff happens. It's not because someone didn't care. It's just because you grab something, you go, oh, that looks like the toy. And it may be a low-res thing, and you've got the wrong thing, and you're just picking colors.
Yeah. We had some questions from some of the listeners, actually. Mark Seddon had this question about deadlines himself, saying, reportedly Larry sometimes is quite tight or quite late with delivering scripts. So was there ever points where you start get a sweat on, where you start thinking, come on, Larry, I need this script? And because your work is, like you said, super, detailed and accurate, and that must take time, but you never seemed to miss an issue. You were, there was no delays to the book. And even when you were double shipping, how much time would you need to deliver the 22 pages or whatever it is of storyline? At what point do you start thinking, oh shit, I am up against it now?
Well, that was one of the things is early on in the book, for, I guess, the first half of my run, I was doing a page a day, which is standard in the industry for the States anyway. But because of Larry and the way he works, and Larry likes to kind of take his time and put everything together, you might get the script late. And the problem I was running into is guys that we would bring in to do fill-ins, they would be penciling a book when I was already penciling the book behind it. And if they hadn't gotten to the pages that I needed to reference, there was a disconnect, and I hated things not matching up. So I basically doubled my output So I started doing 2 pages a day just to get the book out consistently, to have a consistent look. I didn't want to have to reference other people or wait on other people. And so that's why, like, the second half of my run, there's hardly any fill-in issues at all.
Right.
But that was a decision I made. And I try to make sure that I get the book in on time from my end so that Brian has his full time to ink it, and then Jim has his full time to color. I didn't want to hand something to them and say, okay, you have to crank it out with less time because of me.
Yeah. So did you have more conversations or more to do with further chains down, with colours and inks and things rather than you did with Larry, or was there really not much talking between any of you?
We didn't really talk to Larry that much. Brian, if you get him on the show, he's a funny guy. He's notorious for saying that every time he meets Larry, which has been multiple times, Larry's like, who are you again? Because Larry just, doesn't register. I talk to Brian probably more than anybody because Brian may email or text and go, well, what is the thing on, page 8, panel 4?
Right.
What's he holding? And I may send him the reference that I used, or just say, oh, it's that old Coleco game Football. Just reference that.
Okay.
But Larry was the guy I probably Brian was the guy I probably talked to the most. Jim, occasionally I would send color references to, but that was more for, like, Easter egg stuff.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Which you put quite a few in. If the eagle-eyed readers were paying attention, then they'd find quite a lot of nice little nuggets in your work, I think.
Yeah, and sometimes I thought they were obvious, and Jim would color it something totally different. Be like, oh, it was supposed to be the TV Captain America van. It's supposed to be blue, not yellow, or whatever he would make it. And I'd be like, those that get it will get it. Yeah,
very cool, very cool. I'm just flicking through the pages of this issue. I'm not too sure what the 3D printer added to this issue. When Serpentor's in his Bacta tank getting health back up Luke Skywalker style.
And to complete the look, man.
Yeah, but why couldn't that collar just have been lying around?
What's amusing to me is, why was he healing up with his full uniform on anyway?
Oh, in the actual rejuvenation tank, he's got his full kit on.
Yeah, he's gone from being a very nude Serpentor to, like, I guess the Joes are like, give him his battle togs. Might make him that much more enthusiastic about his new role as the CPU.
That's what I'm saying. Why did Larry feel the need to put in this 3D printer thing with the snake cowl collar thing? Why couldn't that have just been with the rest of his gear?
Who knows with Larry? It could be that he saw it on TV and goes, ooh, I like that 3D
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, maybe 3D printers were kind of a hot new thing in March 2015.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's an expression of his, like, electro-telekinesis, Chief.
Oh, sorry, yes. We'll
It's
come
the
on to the
first
telekinesis
blushings
later.
of the fact that he can manipulate the environment just using his mind.
Well, what's funny is I've worked with Larry Scripps enough that I could almost tell you what he had been watching, like, that week or the week before the script came in.
Right.
You tell.
Well, there was that one episode or one issue where they fight the Asian robot and she jumps up onto the ceiling.
Yeah,
And
Exorcist
she's
style.
very kind of like Japanese The Room or whatever.
Yeah.
And I know Larry watches a lot of Japanese cinema. So it's like, okay, Larry, I know what you've been watching lately. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Chilling stuff, though, by the way. And once again, fantastically illustrated.
Yeah. Just the movement, in your work. I'm looking at the last page of that issue where Snake Eyes and Stalker and Scarlet, they're all kind of falling down and they have to reach out and grab them. And Serpentor's now supposedly got the upper hand. And right here we get another time for another little bit. It's time for a Larry Harmer-ism. Because Snake Eyes says you have to Charlie Mike.
Snake Eyes says?
Stalker says, I've got Scarlet. Snake Eyes, you have to Charlie Mike. Yes, I don't even know what I'm looking at. But one of Larry Harmer's regular...
Though, there is an erroneous word balloon in a forthcoming issue.
Oh yeah, don't they attribute... a speech balloon has been attributed to Snake Eyes when it should have been attributed to Serpentor.
Indeed.
Yes.
Or someone else in the scene. Maybe it was one of the Joes, but Snake Eyes
And
got
so-
very wordy for a second.
So just to help me out, because regular listeners will know that my memory is awful and that I am very slow on the uptake to understand things, even though I read these issues this morning, I'm still not 100% sure what's going on. So Serpentor is supposed to be controlling this artificial intelligence kind of extraterrestrial eyeball sentient thing, which is now manifested in the guise of a giant robot that he's controlling. But unbeknownst to the Joes, Cobra have also developed a super weapon robot thing. And Serpentor's now on the loose, and he wants to do what? It's just world domination now, is it? I'm not sure.
Well, what else would he do?
Yeah.
He's not going to open like a chain of restaurants or
Yeah.
something.
Well, there you go. That's it. It's fine. I'm up to speed.
Serpentor sushi, one on every corner.
Touche. Did you have any specific brief when it came to like creating these giant mecha, or
No.
was it all your baby?
It was basically just kind of the eyeball thing. I never knew what he was doing with that.
No one did.
Neither did we.
And as far as the robots go, it was just kind of implied that they would look very Transformer-esque.
Okay.
And so I basically took a Transformer and tried to alter it slightly, thinking it's going to be the same tech, or Cobra's trying to copy that, or whatever.
Bit of a bait and switch. I do like the fact that, we center around this gigantic eye, thinking they're probably a pair of them. But you went with the kind of the monoptic shockwave design for the head. Yeah, nice move there.
That was really just, okay, I've established a size for it.
Yeah.
So the robot wouldn't be big enough to have two of them. It was really just kind of like covering my own butt as far as the sizing issue.
Very cool. And the fact that it avoids having a nose. Because then that would be like protruding beside the eye like a giant mountain range, right?
No, you don't want it to look like an abstract painting.
Indeed. And the other, the sort of Revenge Cobra Red Shadows creation?
Which one?
So Cobra has a response robot that they created, which gets very quickly dispatched by this extraterrestrial robot that Serpentor is controlling. It's kind of a dark grey or blackish design. I don't know, it has some essence of like Jetfire to it. Was there, once again, a specific reference that you were going for?
No, it's basically, here's the one Transformer toy I have. And I'm going to draw that, and I'm going to change bits.
Nice.
And try and make it look like a generic Transformers toy.
It's a Transformer I would love to own. It's a cool looking bot, man.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. There's
we try.
there's quite a lot of intrigue going on here in these issues. One of which is kind of understated when compared to the Snake Eyes Sean kind of following a similar path plot point, but it's Red Laser. Red Laser's kind of referenced early on by Black Major as someone we can't let be captured or harmed. Red Laser has their helmet. They have their helmet on for all of these issues. So even by the end of this storyline, I don't think the reveal is there. Now, I have read these and multiple issues past that, but only when they came out. And again, I can't remember who actually is underneath that helmet for the Red Laser, but it's hinted at as being someone important. For the sake of my own sanity, rather than spoiling it for me, does that get resolved? Who is under that helmet? Just a yes or no will do.
I have no idea. It's one of those things like Larry could reference it later, and it could be somebody completely different in his head.
Right. Okay.
So he may use Red Laser, but whoever he wrote in as being the person that wore the helmet, it could be totally different.
Okay, I didn't know if it was in the next couple of issues where...
No.
Okay. Right,
I know that we have one of the characters show up later in like a Asian underground base.
Right.
Like in a Southeast Asia kind of
Okay.
headquarters. And there's a guy in that's not covered, and he's a Red Shadow, but I don't know. I can't remember if that's Laser Blaster.
Because there is one point in here where Red Laser does actually speak Japanese, or someone is saying something in Japanese,
Then that would
and
be him later on.
they interpret it, into English.
That would be him later on.
Well, Chief, you'd be hard-pressed to find a issue of Battle Action Force where it's not referenced that Red Laser is, in fact, Japanese. They really play that note pretty hard in that comic.
Yeah.
So I guess Larry was maybe just putting an Easter egg in there for old-time Action Force fans. Like, yes, I get it. This guy is Japanese.
Probably.
Yeah. And the other bit of intrigue, the main bit of intrigue, is the parallel path that Sean takes in becoming Snake Eyes. At the time, I think 5 years ago, I was like, I'm not sure. But now rereading it, I don't think I actually am as offended as I was first time around. I think I'm okay with it in terms. I'm talking about the disfigurement, the vocal cords going. Was it at the time? I thought that's just way too close to, mirroring Snake Eyes. But now, no, I quite like it now. I think.
I think it was Larry's kind of solution for, okay, I got to kill Snake Eyes, but I want to have Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, Caesar's dead, long live Caesar, or whatever kind of situation.
And it would have been weird if someone else pulled on that kind of commando uniform and looked like Snake Eyes, but was talking. That wouldn't have sat well, I don't think, or gelled or been expected. So how else do you have the character not speak? Then, unless they've taken a vow of silence, then you need to do something to actually physically make them not be able to speak.
Well, plus you have a character that was established in the original series, so there's a connection for the fans in a lot of ways. I mean, it's kind of like when the Falcon took over for Captain America. It's almost like a passing of something as opposed to just some guy picking up the shield. So I think it's that kind of thing where the fans are a little more comfortable with it because it is someone they have a connection to.
Yeah, and like they say, they want to keep up the guise that Snake Eyes is still alive. So go to every means possible or everything to make that ruse be believable. But
Chief, your reaction to the death of Snake Eyes is not uncommon. I mean, obviously, it sent huge shockwaves through the community. Like, it was like, what? The actual? Not everyone is cynical like me and kind of shies away from the golden boy of G.I. Joe mythology and is like, oh no, Snake Eyes again? A lot of people, like, he is the draw card. You try to eliminate him and replace him, their enthusiasm for the story will be diminished. But just like you, rereading this story, it's handled in such a way that it kind of, we needed this. We needed a world without Snake Eyes. If for no other reason than to finally know what that would be like and what that would mean. And it gave us one of the most poignant issues, I'd say, in recent memory.
Yeah.
My biggest concern, though, is as a germaphobe, you just came out of a flaming thing, your head's on fire, and you put on someone else's sweaty mask. The word infection mean anything?
No.
Okay.
Dude, at this point, Sean Collins is nigh invulnerable, and I'll tell you why. The Toxo Viper file card bangs on for a good chunk of its text about how that suit is basically built by the lowest bidder. It is the cheapest form of protection anyone can ever wear in a hazardous environment. For it to have gone into outer space and then survived re-entry, yeah, man, this guy's not afraid of a few germs, let me just say.
Yeah. Two bits around this period of the comic that I read, one I like and one I don't particularly like. One, I love the fact that you've drawn little fangs on Serpentor. Very cool, very cool. That kind of harkens back to, I think, his original appearance. We chatted on the show last week about this, didn't we, Steve?
Yeah, I think, were you referencing Rod Wigham's run on Joe? And the sort of Serpentor's initial creation?
Yeah.
At that point?
Yeah, and that's probably the references that I was using on it.
Wonderful. It's something that is often overlooked, but yeah, it's almost as if there is some kind of serpent-like DNA that kind of got snuck in there somehow. Maybe in a very kind of Kurt Connors, the Lizard sense. Dr. Mindbender was like, let's give this guy some additional resilience.
Here's an admission for you. This is before I'd seen the cartoon or anything. I only read the comic. I used to call him Serpentor.
Examot.
Yeah, Examot and Serpentor.
You know what? Larry Harmer himself has been quoted as saying, don't criticize a person's pronunciation. It means that they learnt words through reading. So, there you go. Nice. Drops the mic, man.
One thing I wasn't overly pleased about Larry's bit of dialogue here is when Serpentor is beaten up on Snake Eyes and Duke says to Scarlet, stand down, Scarlet, Joe and I have got this. I thought it was a bit insulting to Scarlet. Or is it more that she's got a personal involvement here and he doesn't want that to cloud, not her judgment, but her combat ability?
I'll save comment on this for when we get to one of the later issues.
Okay.
Ask me again about that.
Okay, then. All right. Oh, interesting.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Doesn't he say stand down? Is this because he's about to throw that grenade?
No, he's pulled a shooter on him and Joe, and then Joe throws his gun at him, and then he gets the grenade out later. But Yeah, it felt a little bit like kind of male chauvinism there, but anyway, we'll check out Shannon's response to that later. The next issue we come to is, I guess, would this be the second ever silent issue? No, the third. There was 21, there was 85, which was the SFX one, and then this one here, 214, is the third Real American Hero silent issue, I guess. What was the kind of direction here from Larry? Was it more detailed panel descriptions? Or, I mean, does he work in the Marvel style anyway? Or how in-depth did Larry go on a normal issue of Real American Hero in terms of what he gives you?
He does write in the old Marvel style. It is very kind of like a synopsis of a page as opposed to panel 1, panel 2, panel 3. And Larry kind of describes, it's a paragraph, and he basically says each sentence is a panel.
Right.
So it may be a 6-sentence paragraph or a 5-sentence paragraph. Usually he does not include dialogue. Occasionally he will. But most of that is he bases the dialogue on what he sees when he gets the artwork back.
Got it.
For this, he was kind of, because it's a silent issue, it didn't really change how the script read. The only thing he was very adamant about was certain details or certain characters. Brian and I refer to this as the Weepy Joe's issue.
Right.
And we've often talked about opening a bar called Weepy Joe's, come cry in your beer. And we even designed a logo at one time. We haven't fleshed it out, but it was I have a great photograph of Brian with like a fake tear on his cheek, and he's got his like army hat on. He's saluting.
Nice.
So ask Brian about that if you have him on the show. But yeah, this issue was basically just a drawn out goodbye to Snake Eyes and how he impacted everybody in the Joes.
So from a personal point of view, did you have any, not personal connection to the Snake Eyes, but was he one of your favourites, or was he just another character in a large ensemble cast?
He was one. Honestly, he was one of the guys that got me into the book because he was a ninja. Right. Snake Eyes origin issues, like back in the early mid 20 issues, where they explain how he went to Japan and studied with Storm Shadow's family and so forth. Those were the issues that got me into Joe. Like, I wasn't on early on. I was when it became much more ninja-oriented, the Silent Castle and so forth. That was when I kind of came on board.
Yeah.
Because that was also the time period where, the Shokasugi films were coming out. The Ninja and Revenge of the Ninja and anything with a ninja I was all about.
Okay, yeah.
And so I had some affection, but it wasn't like a lot of guys.
Yeah. I'm going to just move over to pages 2 and 3, and this is a segment that I thought would never come back, but it's time for Can S-Jub Name the Joes?
Here we go. Name the Joes. I said Steven's gotta name the Joes. Is there a clue in the character pose? Maybe the outfit or the funky clothes? Do I spy a pair of pantyhose? Some facial hair or distinctive nose? Steven needs to ID the Joes. Knock 'em over like dominoes. Or Larry Hammer's polyphonic prose. Can S-Jub name the Joes?
Can he indeed? Firstly, Shannon, did you have a checklist from Larry as to how many characters he wants to see depicted at this funeral? What were you working off of?
He just said as many Joes as we could fit, if I remember correctly. He had some specific because they were seen in the shot. But I basically sat down with like the old Marvel Universe guide or whatever, for the Joes.
Right.
And I just kind of made a checklist of like, okay, because my copies of the pencils, I actually have all the characters labeled.
Yes.
So anybody you're wrong about, I can tell you.
Oh, do you have them before you right now?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, this will be
So I think Steve had previously gone back and counted 62 Joes as drawn in these pages prior, when we were talking about it during Cobra's pit invasion, and we were talking about how many Joes were actually on base at any one time, and you kind of thought 62, and I think I've just counted 70 here. So you were close, Steve. You were close on how many Joes there might have been.
Oh, come on, Chief. They've pulled in all the reserves. When I came up with that number,
yes.
I was basically working backwards from the fact that Cobra Commander had made the assumption that the pit was now staffed by a skeleton crew.
Right, okay.
So I was like, okay, how many Joes have we seen on active assignments for him to make that assumption?
Anyway, moving on.
Top
row, left to right.
Crucify me.
It's all on you. Go for it. Top row, left to right.
Okay, top left,
Yes.
starting there. We've got Spearhead and Max, then Backblast, Downtown, Recoil, Scoop, Shockwave. I'm going to say Ambush is next, then Bullhorn, Captain Gridiron, Freefall, Pathfinder. Ooh, Shannon, you're going to have to help me now.
That's a filler.
Okay.
I made up a guy.
S-Jubs wins.
Nice.
Well, the thing is that's where the
join is, the page turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's somebody I knew didn't matter. So, like, if you go directly down, there are characters that if they don't end up in the book, it's okay because technically they're not supposed to be part of Joe anyway.
Exactly. So we've got. Well, you want to do the reveal, don't you? Who wants to say the name of this character? Chief, you're a wrestling fan.
What, Sergeant Slammer?
Indeed, the one and the same. Yes, no, maybe. Sergeant Slaughter, of course.
Yeah.
Good old Rob Remus. I wonder if his agent knows that he's made an appearance on the pages of G.I. Joe. Shh, nobody tell him. Anyway, moving past the page turn, we have Rampart, Super Trooper, Salvo, Stretcher, Sub-Zero, Topside, Heavy Duty, Tracker. And once again, Shannon, I'm going to default to you. Who is that guy in the grey?
You know what? That's actually one of the few characters I didn't label.
Oh,
knowing me, it's probably supposed to be a Blue Ninja.
Masters of Disguise. All right, moving to the second row down.
Please.
Iceberg, someone obscured by the flagpole.
Yeah, didn't
Footloose, who is actually deceased.
Yeah, I did that too. That was... I can't remember if I put Crankcase in here too.
Then we have some original 13 guys, so I'm going to say Short Fuse.
Yep.
And Zap.
Sap, yep.
Great, okay, cool. Leatherneck, Lifeline, Recondo, Ripcord?
Yep.
Blowtorch, Lowlight, Sergeant Slaughter, Sci-Fi, Fast Draw, Blizzard, Budo, Barbecue, Hit and Run, Lightfoot, Muskrat, Repeater, Hardball. Sorry, no, did we have Barbecue already? Oh, it's Charbroil. Ah, yes, you used a modern Charbroil design.
Oh, you're saying next to Budo.
And Hit and Run,
okay.
Between Budo and Hit and Run is Charbroil, which makes the guy on the far end Barbecue.
Yeah.
Nice. We then have Cross Country, which then makes me question who drives the Havoc in a later page.
It's actually Dial Tone.
What?
But without his stuff on.
Well done. Shit,
so if you take off the backpack, which is what everybody recognizes him for.
Yeah. And the moustache.
Which you can't really see at this,
that would have been artist masturbation, wouldn't it? If you'd included that. Okay, very good. Jeez, I'm kicking myself for not getting that now. But
well, come on, man. That's how you recognize the characters is the gear.
No, I should do better than that. Moving down to the next row, starting off with Rock and Roll, then Airborne, another obscured character. Did you have a sort of filler name for these guys?
No, it was just because you're not going to see him. It was just put a
Grunt.
Usually I would just draw Grunt because it was like the standard under uniform.
Nice. Grunt or Lola, his globe-trotting super spy wife. We then have Gung Ho. I'm going to go with Frostbite. Then Chuckles, Tripwire, Junkyard, Mutt, Lady J, Flint, Outback, The Fridge.
He's not one of the Joes.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, no, this can't be the Fridge. He looks
Caucasian. It is. He's just legally nuts.
No, indeed. The late but resurrected Sneak Peek, Jinx, Falcon, Law, Order, Tunnel Rat, Airtight, Alpine, Mainframe, Bazooka, Dusty, a wheelchair-bound Roadblock. Nice touch, that. Spirit and Freedom. Then last row, Hawk, Duke, Stalker, Scarlet, Joe, and Jane. How did I do?
Very good.
98%. All the listeners have been bored to tears by this great radio. Thank you, Chief, for doing that. Stroking my ego.
Hey, if I enjoyed it and you enjoyed it, that's all that matters.
Well, hopefully this double page splash will be lovingly reproduced on all the socials. So if you've suffered through this, your suffering comes to an end when you get to pour your eye over this incredible Where's Wally or Who's Who of the G.I. Joe infantry roster.
Yes. Can I ask a really stupid question? The kind of coyote that's in these pages, this is not Timber 3. It's just
No.
a random
Yes.
one-eared coyote.
Yeah, he was supposed to be just kind of like a desert coyote.
Yep.
It just kind of wanders in and is like, well, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
So,
It's been said by a number of fans that Snake Eyes clearly has some kinship with wolves or with canines. Like, there's definitely some connection there. They kind of like his vibe, if nothing else.
Yeah,
So, and this is wonderful. It's sort of a bond between Soldier and the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciate it, man.
Most powerful moment in the issue for me is actually Stalker breaking down. It would have been very easy for that to be Scarlet, I think, to be the one who, was overwhelmed by the situation. But here, it being Stalker, that was really, for me, it was like, wow, I didn't see that coming. And, I can see the anguish on his face. It's real. So,
and see, this is what goes back to the thing I was talking about before.
right.
Because my whole point is A, if Stalker's going to be the one that loses it and not Scarlet, then why wouldn't she be tough enough to get engaged in the fight earlier?
Yeah.
But the other thing, too, is I'm a little pissed off at Scarlet for not being more impacted because you slept with the dude.
Yeah, it's your lover,
Yeah, this isn't like some guy that you worked with that you're like, oh, okay, I feel bad. This is the person that you supposedly were in love with.
Yeah.
So that was the scene that I was kind of like, I don't know if this makes sense or if it does make sense for me, but that was the way Larry had written it.
Yeah, maybe it's off panel that she's having a breakdown.
I would say it is off panel, and there's a lovely little bit of synergy. I don't know if you realized it, but Mr. Fuso's cover with Scarlet grieving over the casket.
So let me have a look quickly. Oh, yeah.
There could be a moment where she loses it, and that's when the pallbearers place Snake Eyes inside the C-130, and that's where she's actually saying goodbye. Like, we don't see it in the issue, but if you kind of read into it with that cover, like, that's where she absolutely loses it, and she is spared having that moment, that very personal, very intimate moment, kind of shown front and center right in front of our faces. I don't know. I'm just spitballing ideas, but when I saw that cover, I was like, I was actually a little bit choked up myself.
Well, that was my only gripe with the concept of killing off Snake Eyes, because in essence, that's the only romance that you have in Joe. Like, the only confirmed true romance going on. And my argument was because there's a very outspoken fan in the States called Olivia Tien, who's a sweet girl, but she only followed Joe because of their romance.
Okay.
And so I figured, well, where you have one fan, there's got to be at least a handful or more that feel the same way. And so I was kind of bummed that they were getting rid of the one kind of emotional connection between characters on that level out of the book. So at the end of the issue, I tried to reestablish the Flint-Lady J relationship.
Yes, yep.
As kind of like,
that.
This is the replacement one. Or like, if you're going to go down the romance lane, these are the characters that haven't gotten attention, but it's always kind of been hinted at or commented on. So that was why at the end they reach out for each other.
Yeah, nice touch. And it feels like there's almost like a closing of the loop. I don't know if you're aware of it, but in one of the classic issues from the Marvel run, Flint and Lady J have a bit of friction at the elevator entrance to the pit. Lady J actually clocks Flint because he's being a bit of a shit, and it's almost in the same location.
Oh, that's when the team of Stalker, Snowjob, Outback, and Quick Kick, they get trapped on and Outback makes it out, and Flint says, "Oh, didn't he left the team behind or something like that?" Is that is that the one? And then Stalker.
No, well, Flint was just pissed off with Snake Eyes and Scarlet.
When they faked their
on
death.
this rescue and faking their death and making him feel foolish as a result. Anyway, so she clocks him one. But in more or less the same location, they're kind of sharing this moment.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really, really nice touch.
Oh, now I see the cover you're talking about. The Fuso cover is from the next issue, 215.
Yes.
Now I see it. Yeah, with the casket. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh right. Okay. So wrong issue then. Damn it.
Next issue is the one. Yeah. It's got Shannon's cover with the boots and the sword and the Uzi, which is it's a great cover.
It's interesting doing these issues in overview, having the luxury of seeing the next issue. But for people at the time reading this and having this silent issue and having no idea where the book is going from there, Wow, bombshell.
Yeah, yeah. And the first page on the next issue, which is the last of the storyline, you're getting quite a lot from Sean here, even though, now he's horrifically burnt, he's got no vocal cords, he's writing answers down on the notepad. Even the way he looks, Shannon's done a great job of conveying a lot from his eyes, especially, the kind of torment and sorrow that he's feeling about not only the death of Snake Eyes, but what lies in store for him. He's now effectively KIA and assuming that a completely new guise and a new role, and wonderfully portrayed in the art here.
I'm just going to take that and run with it. That's all mine.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Lovely work with the Night Creepers. The action sequence to tail end the issue is my favorite kind of action sequence. Zero dialogue. All too often once Larry gets the book back, I see him kind of inserting extraneous banter between characters that are locked in combat. And it's very heavy on the ninjas. But to have this kind of night ops team silently dispatch these, otherwise elite Cobra ninjas, that's wonderful work.
Very violent here.
As it should be, man.
What's the Muskrat's got the kind of entrenching tool, is it? And he's going to work.
Yeah, jeez. Was that in Larry's script that Muskrat, eschewed using a firearm and instead just went with a close quarters melee weapon?
I'll almost guarantee it. I would have to go. I still have the scripts. I would have to go back and look, but yeah, most likely.
Incredible.
Is this an Easter egg I've just spotted here? It's in the first few pages after Scarlet and Sean scene has cut away. We're now in the Cobra Silent Castle. Black Major's got some kind of iPad thingy or some kind of device, and I'm sure one of the things says Danger Rodent, and then Baroness Spank something.
Oh, yeah.
I can't make it out.
Yeah, that's actually, remember I was talking about the ColecoVision football thing?
Oh, yes, yeah.
So in the States, back in the 70s, that was like a very popular handheld LED game.
Right.
And I'm sure they made like a European football equivalent.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what that was.
Yeah, very cool. Well, one other thing I wanted to ask as well, we get a brief appearance by Firefly in the, what's he in? He's in the ice cream truck.
Mm.
And, I've just spotted Thrummond's Ice Cream. Is that John?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. And who's the driver in the ice cream van?
You got to come up with a new jingle, Chief. It's got to be Name the Cobras now.
Oh, God, I don't know.
I don't know. Shannon, do you want to take a stab at this?
I have no idea. I'd have to look in the script. Larry probably indicated some random.
It's an ice viper.
Is it?
Ba-dum-tsh.
Nice.
An ice viper driving an
then
ice cream
I'll
truck.
take credit for that then.
Well, you got the funnies, man. That's very, very funny.
Ice
Lovely
Viper in the
touch.
ice cream truck. Yeah, nice.
Oh, of course.
What's Firefly doing here a second, actually? He's just blowing stuff up, is he?
Well, that's what he does.
That's his MO,
He's
I guess.
Blowing up the Collins residence.
I don't get a shout out for the page before where I have her eating Twiglets.
Yeah, I see it now. God damn, I hate Twiglets, but I love that. That is amazing.
I have no idea what Twiglets are. Sorry,
Oh.
I'm from Africa.
What's your connection with the UK then, Shannon? Because you're quite well versed in UK culture, etc.
My dad was a studio musician. He was a drummer, and he did a lot of touring, and he was with the Everly Brothers for a long time. But
wow.
they always ended up touring Europe. And my dad loved England. He was a huge James Bond fan, and he loved Monty Python and Fawlty Towers and all that stuff. And my mom was also very much into, British culture. And so when they would go on vacation, that was usually where they would try to go, was London or something.
Oh, right.
But my mom fell in love with Twiglets. And so whenever my dad would go to the UK on tour, he would leave with 2 suitcases and come back with 3. And one of them would be filled with Twiglets. And so, so it was just something that my dad kind of, my parents got me into. We watched a lot of British dramas and comedy, sitcom stuff. My mom still loves all the classic British comedies. So, it's just something I kind of grew up with. And then I worked with a lot of the guys at Titan for a while.
Right, yeah.
And so a lot of the guys that used to be editors there are friends, personal friends. One, I introduced him to his wife. She was from the States, and she moved there, and they got married.
Oh, nice.
So, I just, if I don't know something, I'll text them. I'll be like, dude, what's the equivalent of this in the UK?
Yeah, cool. No, that's cool. That Twiglets, I hadn't spotted that before, but that's a nice little touch. That's the things I like, these, these little Easter egg things that won't mean anything to a big percentage of people, but those that do get the gag or get the reference, brings a smile to the face. So that's a very cool thing to do, and it's something that's not obscuring the overall bigger picture of the page or the story. So what if it says Twiglets? Doesn't detract from it at all, but enhances.
Well, you
it
get
for
one and I get one, Chief.
Go on.
In the previous issue,
Yes.
one of my favorite little Easter eggs is you've given Windmill his own helmet design.
Oh yes.
Now, Windmill is a helicopter pilot, but he flies an experimental helicopter called the Skystorm, and he's got a code name, Windmill. And you have managed to make the Skystorm outline into a windmill shape on his helmet. I don't know if you know exactly what I'm referring to, Shannon.
No, I do.
But
Yeah.
damn it, man, that's a masterstroke. Was that all your baby?
Usually that kind of stuff, like if it was a logo, like a false, like a quick one-off logo, something like that, that was me. Only because of if you don't know the vehicle or something, because it's more obscure. I was just trying to okay, this is who it is. This is because he's wearing a helmet with a visor. How are you supposed to know who it is?
Well, I'm a big fan of the Skystorm, and that is the first time I've seen that design, and I love it to bits. It's very clever. It actually looks like both the aircraft and an actual windmill. So,
Yeah,
mad
kudos.
props, buddy.
Yeah. This, I know you mentioned, Steve, about the closing sequence, the silent throwdown, no pun intended, of all these night creepers. And I particularly enjoy the last page of the issue because that first panel, we get a night creeper and he's surprised by the new Snake Eyes. And I love that reflection in his goggles. And then you get to see the new Snake Eyes in action, sword out, looking cool in this garb, and basically doing his first piece of work as Snake Eyes to close the issue out. Really cool kind of rounding out of this story and the beginning of something new for this character that we've known and loved for so long in a completely new guise, and what direction is it going to go in. So it kind of wrapped up that whole thing really nicely, even if we had to have the Transformers and the artificial eye thing in the middle of it, where Larry had no clue what he was doing. Supposedly writes one page at a time. I'm not overly convinced that he does that, but I'm sure he writes a little bit longer form. But overall, I kind of enjoyed this little 4-issue arc. I think it had loads of emotional beats in there, introduction of new characters and stuff. So, looking forward to moving on to the next issues, actually.
No doubt.
Yeah.
You say Snake Eyes is new guys, Chief, but
Actually, it's Snake Eyes version 59 from 2012.
Okay, here we go, smart ass. Well, maybe that is a segue into Steve Talks About Toys.
Steve talks about toys, ho ho. Steve talks about G.I. Joe. He talks about all the toys from the comic book and the animated show. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys.
What have you got for us this week?
what else could we talk about other than Snake Eyes? Just to whet our appetites, I'm going to read his very, very first file card, just to keep it fresh in everyone's mind. Commando, codename Snake Eyes. File name, classified. Grade E5. Birthplace, classified. Primary specialty, infantry. Secondary specialty, hand-to-hand combat instructor. Snake Eyes is proficient in 12 different unarmed fighting systems, karate, kung fu, jiu-jitsu, and is highly skilled in the use of edged weapons. He has received extensive training in mountaineering, underwater demolitions, jungle, desert, and Arctic survival, and some form of holistic medicine. Qualified expert, all NATO and Warsaw Pact small arms. The man is a total mystery, but he's real good at his job. Heck, he's the best. Wow, I wonder who was quoted as saying that.
Wolverine.
Someone who's got a bit of street cred. I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring and say either Stalker or Rock and Roll.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
I'd go with Stalker. I mean, he was obviously
Yeah,
distraught.
sure. Though you did show a weeping Rock and Roll in at the funeral.
Everybody was
Everyone
crying. It
was
the
crying,
Weeping
man.
Joes.
Yeah, but Rock and Roll got a great close-up. I kind of wondered what that was all about. Like, why Rock and Roll in particular? I suppose original 13, he had a long time with the Shadow Man.
Yeah.
Normally at this point, Shannon, I would monologue for about 10 minutes about
good
some
Lord.
or other specific version of this figure, with the occasional interjection from Chief as to whether or not he had the toy or what memories he might be able to, like, draw out of his memory, which he, by his own admission, is pretty shot. But
Then
instead...
I need a bathroom break.
No, you're not going to get off the hook that easily. This figure has, or this character has seen close to 70 versions within the official Hasbro releases. I was wondering if you have a personal favorite design. You tended towards the goggles, which I already approve of. I never could understand the World War One shrapnel visor.
Yeah.
But if you were to go through your reference material, which version would you say inspired you the most, or did you want to emulate the most, or draw the most elements from?
When I started out on the book, and I got some flack for it early on, my first decision was to put everybody in their classic costumes as much as possible, except where it was somebody's costume that I actually liked the second version better, or the first version better, or whatever. So that's why Destro went back to his original Pent Daddy kind of look. But that was my thing with Snake Eyes was, he was one of the 13. He was like one of the original guys. And I was always partial to the goggles. From a visual, like if you were in a costume like that, if you're a ninja, you don't want to reduce your amount of vision. You want to increase it as much as possible. You're in a situation where it's low light or whatever. You don't want to be looking through a set of blinds. So it never made any sense to me. Like some of the stuff, when I approach it as an artist, it's what is the reality of this? Would you want to do that? Is that how you would want to go into combat? And so part of it was I always saw Snake Eyes as a very matter-of-fact kind of character. I'm not going to wear a cape because it gets in the way. I'm not going to do this because it gets in the way, or I'm not going to wear that because it gets in the way. I'm going to carry my essentials, exactly what I need, because I'm here to do a mission and I'm coming home. And so that's how I approached it. And to me, the goggles made more sense. Plus, it was the original version.
Nice.
Yeah,
man.
But that's my feeling on it. So.
I think I had, I never had the version 1 toy. I had the version 2, and being a Action Force reader early on before G.I. Joe, where he was always depicted in the version 2 with the visor, I always tended towards that version. I think he felt a little bit, as a figure, he felt a little bit meatier, bit not quite as lean as that first one, which I kind of liked as well. But then, surprisingly, that's the only version of that figure I had. Now, Ben had the version 3 and 4 as well, but I only ever had that version 2. But I do really like that commando look. So the 1 and 2 are my favourite looking ones, but from a toy point of view, I only ever had the second one. Well, what about yourself? You're not getting off the hook either, S-Jubs. What versions did you have as kids, and what versions have you got now, seeing as you are still a collector of the toys?
Oh, man. Well, Christmas of 1990, when preschool broke up, I got Stalker version 2 with the kayak. And on Christmas Day, I was a lucky kid. I got to unwrap Snake Eyes version 3. That's the one with the 2 big trench knives, or butterfly knives.
That's the one that he got.
Yeah.
He got that outfit off of the Payne brothers, was it?
Don't remind me. When I first read that comic, I was so disappointed. What? He just basically nicked someone else's clothes?
Oh, he's a ninja.
And a thief.
No. Yeah. But you said it, Shannon. Everything has to be purpose driven. And that's version 3 is all business. He's got combat boots, adequate foot protection. He's got a little bit of armor on his forearms. He's got knives and grenades, an earpiece for communications. I mean, that look is very functional and really maxes out on weapons. Guns, swords, a blowgun, awesome. The sword that can sheath on the backpack. Anyway, I'm going on a little bit long now, but that version, unfortunately, disappeared very quickly. I think he was my favorite figure, and obviously some other child's favorite figure too, because it was pilfered from my collection early doors.
Oh, no.
Which left me with Snake Eyes version 4, which I got in Christmas of 1992, and saw a lot of use. In fact, of the few toys that I have with me here in Australia from my childhood collection, I have my original Snake Eyes version 4 right here before me. And need I say more, this version was made that much more cooler, if that's correct grammar, that much cooler by the work of the great Andrew Wildman, who's also guested on this show. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
He did fantastic work bringing this piece of plastic, this lump of toy history in my hand, to loving life on the pages of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero.
I think he needs a moment alone with it.
We won't get into it.
Give me 5 minutes, guys.
We'll save this for another episode. But very, very quick 30-second thoughts, S-Jubs, on the Snake Eyes in the retro line.
Have him, don't need him again.
Okay.
Sorry, Hasbro has lost me as a consumer forever.
Okay. Not as in you have the new Snake Eyes retro line figure, but you have the original, so why do you need a...
No, I have I have the figure on which it's based, and the figure, the exact facsimile that was released almost, 8 years ago now, 9 years ago now. Why would I buy this figure again? I don't know. Okay. It's baffling. People say, oh, it's nice to get things at brick and mortar again, but for an international, that's never been an option. I would have to pay scalper prices whether I wanted the one from 2011 or whether I wanted the one from 2020. Anyways, Shannon, you weren't meant to be privy to the rants of a rabid toy collector, but...
There's nothing wrong with that.
Dude, Hasbro, I don't know, man. They are so
trust me,
infuriating.
John Thurman has been quite vocal on his feelings on this on Twitter. He is not happy with how they've conducted this launch.
Yeah. It seems that, and I am not in that toy sphere at all, but I'm on the periphery, and I get most of my toy knowledge from being on this show. But it kind of feels like, from what other people are saying, was other franchises seem to have had retro updates, so or re-releases of figures based purely on retro lines, apart from G.I. Joe, which seems to have got shafted.
Yeah. Big time. They have done everything they possibly could do in the 3 3/4 inch line. They have reinvented the wheel several times. They have done everything except the one thing that diehard collectors like me want more than anything else.
Baroness in the Bikini.
Is a straight up 1-to-1 re-release of the classics. Yep. Ghostbusters got it. He-Man got it. Yep. Transformers got it. Why didn't G.I. Joe get it? Yep.
And again, we're not here to get into that debate, but and again, I don't know, but is that doable? Was that? Is there some kind of restriction against
G1
that?
Transformers have far more complex constructions and less homogeneous constructions. I mean, like with G.I. Joe, your screw gauges are all the same size, and the T-hooks are all the same size, and the O-rings are all the same size. Don't give me that bullshit argument that it's expensive to produce O-ring figures these days. I mean, it's expensive to produce any toys these days. Tooling costs money.
Yeah.
So, but at least with the O-ring stuff, that we're going to buy it. Anyways, I'm going to dry my eyes because, Chief, just this past week, I received a little bit of airmail.
Okay.
Limited edition.
Yes.
Talking Joe trading cards.
I forgot about those.
I'm a happy boy. Chief, once again, thank you, man. Very, very thoughtful gift. I mean, who does that? Makes us into trading cards. It's the first time I've ever been a trading card, and I couldn't be more thrilled.
Yeah, what you're talking about, obviously,
in spite of the fact that you cannot recognize that it's me.
Regular listeners will know that I did a project unbeknownst to the other 3 co-hosts, current co-host S-Jubs, 7, and 2 previous ones, Ben and Chris, and I decided to make trading cards of the four of us, with backs of the cards giving us our histories, etc., and specialties. And I did post those up on the Facebook page, but I think I will post those up on the Twitter and Instagram feeds as well, so people can see. I did make a big spelling mistake on Diagnostic 80 Chris McLeod's name. I give him an extra C in McLeod on the front, but not on the back. So these are now kind of prototype beta cards, but they're a lot of fun to make, and I'm glad they arrived 8 weeks later in Australia when I posted them. But yeah.
Hey, they got through, man, in the age of Corona. It gives me hope that my Joes might get through as well.
Enough of that jazz. It's time for It's a G.I. Joe pop quiz. It's a G.I. Joe pop quiz. Question 2. So, Shannon, you've been invited along by Shockwave to a drug elimination force raid. There's sightings of Headman and the Headhunters in the local area. You've been advised to take some canine help with you. Who do you take along on this drug bust? Do you take Order, Junkyard, or Nasher?
I would actually go with Nash.
Yeah, I like that choice. Ding, 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 correct answer. We've confused a multitude of people who have no idea about the Beano, but I've got some Beano questions for you later on, so we'll get to that. Okay. But Nasher, great choice. Right now, though, it's time to confuse our US listeners, because it's time for Commonwealth colloquialisms. Play that jingle.
We gotta put in. We're gonna over-egg that pudding. Ain't got no criticisms. We got some Commonwealth colloquialisms.
Ooh, does our guest have a colloquialism?
Oh, yes. Well, I don't know. Remiss of me, I completely forgot to ask Shannon if he wanted to partake in this segment. This is where we, if you're not familiar, we come up with colloquialisms from the Commonwealth. It used to be British when it was me and Chris. Then when S-Jubs come in, we got that Commonwealth flavour going on because of the South African roots. And now we try to confuse our US listeners. But or maybe Shannon can try and guess the colloquialisms.
Oh, I'll try.
Okay, so S-Jubs, you're up first. What are you coming in with? South African, Australian to begin?
Oh, we're going to come in with the Aussie.
Okay.
What is a chippy?
A chippy.
A chippy.
I think you said this last week.
Maybe. But is the meaning what you're thinking I said it was?
Okay, well, I've got two possible answers. I don't know if Shannon wants to have a go first.
My only guess would be a British chip, which would be a French fry in the States. But that's a guess.
Does Chief concur?
Well, I would say chippy as in a fish and chip shop would be a chippy. But I have got another one if it's not that.
Oh, okay.
Are you saying it is that or not?
No, I want to hear you hedge. Let's hedge.
No, because the other one is also a British colloquialism. And that would be a reference to a carpenter.
Oh, he got it.
Oh,
got it in
nice.
two. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, man. Yes. Artisans
Carpenter.
like chippies and sparkies.
Sparky would be an electrician, yep.
Electrician, there you go.
That makes sense, all right.
Yeah, very good.
Aussies love their colloquialisms, I tell you.
Yes. Okay, time for my one. My British colloquialism is yonks. YONKS.
Shannon can take a stab at this.
The only thing I can guess, and I'm only guessing because I'm drawing Geordies and Jocks, or Jocks and Geordies. It's a name for people from Yorkshire?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
We could have invented something, though. We could have invented something right here live on the Talking Joe podcast. But no, S-Jubs, you want to have a
go? Yes, but Shannon, are you thinking of Yonkers?
Maybe.
Like, isn't there an area in the States called Yonkers?
That's probably why I'm thinking it, but...
yeah. Isn't on the East Coast? I might be mistaken.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think you are talking about something that was a long time ago.
Yes,
yonks.
It is a general term for a long period of time. We haven't seen you for yonks. And it just means
donkey's ears.
We haven't seen you for ages. Yeah, yes. And
all right, let's round us off with a South African.
Yes, please.
Chice.
Spell that, please.
I've only ever
Use
said
it in a sentence.
I would spell it CHYSE. But that's once again.
And
I don't think
say it for me one more time.
Chice.
Chice. And if you used it in a sentence, would that give it away?
Absolutely, but I'm using it in a sentence anyways.
Okay. Let me just wait a minute. Hey mate, that car is choice. No. What topping do you want in your ice cream? Give me a large choice. No, that doesn't work.
Shave choice.
Yeah.
So
okay, and put your misery, gentlemen. I'm gonna chase a Betty.
Oh yeah, that helped.
You're going to chase a Betty. Well, Betty, you have used before to mean to mean a hottie or a girl. Yes. You're going to chase a Betty. You're going to chat up a girl.
There you go, bro. You're tuning a Betty.
Yeah.
You're chasing.
Yeah.
There you go. Nice. That would be a South African colloquialism for chatting up a woman. Chasing.
Very good. There'll be more confusion next week, as always. But right now, we're going to close the show out with a little bit of... we asked you a question, you being the listeners of this podcast, and you gave us some answers, which we're going to now read out because we asked you a question.
Very good.
Well, basically, the question was just as simple as we've got a fantastic guest, Shannon Gallant, coming on to the show, and have you got any questions that you want to put to him? And maybe me and S-Jubs might even have some more questions. Whoa, the lights have gone out in the office. I'm basically recording this show from the work office today, because I had to come into the office for the first time in 4 months. And I'm in one of these rooms where the lights are motion controlled. So I've just got to get up from my seat a second, wave my arms around to turn, there you go, to turn the lights back on.
Jeez, how much activity does it take to set off the
yeah, right,
sensor?
exactly. So let's see what we got here. Mark Seddon on the Facebook said, we've already talked about the deadline question, but he's mentioned about your approach to drawing and that he's heard somewhere that you actually draw to a smaller scale than the kind of standard, I guess European we'd say A3, but US would be 11 by 17 style, but maybe you draw on a smaller scale, is that right?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Originally, when I was first on the book, like the first half of the book, I guess, I was actually drawn on 8.5 by 11, which is like a standard letter-sized paper in the US.
Okay.
The reason for that was basically to try and, get stuff out faster.
Right.
I also, like we were talking about earlier, I have a tendency to over-detail things. I get too involved. And so drawing at a smaller size also limits how much space you have, so you don't spend so much time on detail because there's just not the room for it.
Right.
So it was something that I had actually picked up from Travis Charis, who was at San Diego one year, and I was flipping through his portfolio.
He is amazing.
And you know how detailed his stuff is.
Oh, it's insane. Love it.
But he works on an 8.5 by 11. Like he essentially takes a standard 11 by 17 sheet and cuts it in half, the Marvel paper that he used to get.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, crap, if he can do it and get away with it, I'll do it. And I've since moved back up. I'm actually using like a Japanese B4 size. So it's a little bit smaller than 8.5 by 11, but I can get a larger page on it than, say, a ledger size paper, which is in the States 10 by 14.
Right.
I don't know, 11 by 14, something like that. But anyway, yeah, I do work smaller, and it's partly I just can't see the whole page. I like being able to kind of get the whole thing into my vision when I'm working.
Very cool.
It's a little faster.
You mentioning Travis there. What were the kind of artists that you were following, kind of growing up, or as you were trying to break into the industry? Who were some of your favorites?
Well, I grew up during the kind of like strong X-Men Marvel run, so I was obviously a John Byrne fan.
Yeah.
I was a Perez fan for his Teen Titans stuff. Then I got into like Adam Hughes because he became like the big cover artist.
Yeah.
But the guys that I've always followed and I still follow today are guys like Jackson Butch Geis, who was on Winter Soldier, and he helped create the swashbucklers at Marvel. And I actually have the joy of kind of, I wouldn't say we're friends, but we communicate through email quite a bit.
Okay.
So it's nice to kind of talk to one of your idols. And he sends me pencil pages, and I get to just sit there and drool like I'm
Wicked.
10 years old again.
He did a great series with Abnett and Lanning, didn't he? Resurrection Man at DC.
Yeah.
That's a great book.
And the other guy would probably be Garcia Lopez, who is the face of DC, production, or whatever you want to call it, because it's like all the licensing stuff from the 80s, 70s, late 70s to almost early 90s is his artwork. And he's just the most huggable son of a bitch. The first time I met him was at Baltimore Con, and the following year he was there again. It was actually my birthday, like literally my birthday, and I walked up to his table, and he's not, English is not his first language, so he usually has someone with him, a guy named Fred Chamberlain, who's really nice. And I said, would Mr. Lopez mind giving me a hug? It's my birthday. And he said, what? And I was like, I'd really love to give him a hug. He's one of my idols, And so he goes over and he says something to Jose, and Jose looks at me and he kind of shrugs his shoulders, and he gets up and he comes over and gives me a hug. And John Thurman took the picture and he posted it. It was like, I've never seen a smile this big on Gallant's face, And it's become a tradition. And every time I see him at a show, he's given into it at this point.
Right.
And other people have given him hugs at other shows and sent me pictures. So it's become this thing.
Wicked.
But yeah, he's just so cute, and
Love
he's he's a great guy. He's the sweetest guy on the planet.
Very cool, very cool. Mark's also said here, and we've kind of touched on this, he wondered about any suggestions you were able to give for characters or story points in. But I guess if you've only really kind of had one conversation with Larry, he was kind of fixed on what he wanted. So was there ever any characters that you really wanted to draw but never got the chance? Or with this kind of cast of characters, I guess you can sneak in pretty much anyone you want on certain pages.
Yeah, traditionally my favorite character, even though I got into it because of Storm Shadow, my favorite character was actually Spirit.
Yes.
My parents were also into Native American art or American Indian art when I was a kid. My mom has a large collection of American Indian jewelry. This was back in the 70s too, when it was movies like Billy Jack, and there was always an American Indian on the $6 Million Man or the Bionic Woman in some way or shape or form at some point. And Spirit in the cartoon was always the guy that fought Storm Shadow. It was never actually Snake Eyes. It was always Spirit and Storm Shadow getting into it. So in my head, he was at the same level of fight skill. And so I would sneak in Spirit whenever I possibly could. I wish Larry would have given him a little bit more love when I was on the book. But,
yeah. Well, I think we managed to see more of Spirit on your tenure on the book than we'd previously seen. So that's I was a big Spirit fan as well. Going back to the kind of early 30s issues from Marvel when the cat all fall down with Snake Eyes in the cabin and Destro and Firefly and all that kind of stuff when he was around there. So big fan of that character. But Rock says, I don't know if this is a question for another time, but he says, "Do you like dark meat?"
Oh God. Man.
But maybe
so do you guys know that story?
I do not know that story. No.
Okay, well, Baltimore hates me as a city. For some reason, it hates me on a spiritual level. My parents must have done something.
Okay.
It's cursed by God. But every Baltimore show, something horrible happens. Like, it just freakish or weird. Like, the last time I was in Baltimore, there was actually a murder outside my hotel.
Oh, no.
And I was coming back from hanging out with Brian Shearer, and I couldn't get in my hotel because the cops had, cordoned off the area. And the building was on lockdown, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm banging on a window to try and get someone to let me in. But one year I was walking around downtown Baltimore, and I'd gone to a liquor store to get some wine or something. And this woman who was a boulevard away from me, so it's 4 lanes of traffic. On the other side of me, she was this older African American. I'm guessing she was a prostitute.
Yep.
Because she screams at me from across the street, "You like black meat?" And I'm like, "No, ma'am, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Have a pleasant evening." And I just tried to scurry off as fast as I could. Well, Rock loved that story because anything out of place, Rock will enjoy.
Right.
Rock is an interesting character if you ever get to meet him at a show.
Cool.
So, but he loves that story for some reason.
And you've stopped going to Baltimore now, or you're just waiting for the next thing to happen when you get there?
It's more of just to go and see what's going to happen whatever year.
At least you're prepared, I guess.
It's always something. There's always something at that show.
Cool. Gary said, did you have a good relationship with editorial, or was there much involvement with those, or were you kind of self-sufficient?
Brian and I always describe the book as being on autopilot. Because we had it down to such a system, we never heard from the editors much. Unless Larry had an issue with something that had to be fixed, or Hasbro, I think, only chimed in 2 or 3 times on my entire run. And one time they wanted the Baroness to have wider hips. I don't know why, but that was an issue for them, one issue.
Interesting.
Nice. Could you remember what the other issue was that they had?
Usually it was just they wanted to include something, or they didn't want a character holding, I think maybe early on I had characters in the background, maybe with a cigarette or something. They were they didn't want that in it, or that kind of thing. But yeah, usually they didn't say anything. That was really the only art change they ever asked for.
Interesting.
But no, the editors, basically, because they knew the book was going to come in and be finished, I hardly ever heard from anybody.
Yeah.
That's why Brian and I got so upset when they relaunched the book a second or third time. They came out with a new G.I. Joe, and they were like, "G.I. Joe returns." And Brian and I were like, "What are you talking about?
It's
We're
never been gone.
50 issues in,
Yeah. G. Matthew said, "Why did you leave the book?" We've already discussed that about the $6 Million Man. And Yorktown Joe, we've talked about toy reference. Now, we mentioned briefly about referencing from toys, but did you get sent any toys by Hasbro, or how did you end up sourcing the toys themselves that you were using for reference? Or was it mainly just, like you mentioned, online resources?
Yeah, most of it was online resources. The only toys I have, which I also mentioned in that tweet, I actually got from Thurman.
Right, okay,
Yeah, because John goes to so many shows. He worked at the Virginia Con show a lot. And if he saw something, he knew I wasn't someone that had to have the pristine box-ready toy.
Right.
It just had to have all the parts, or, the important bits were still in one piece. And so he picked up his tank for me, gave it to me, and he sent me a couple of new figures, like the reissues.
Was one of them Mainframe by any chance?
No.
Ah.
He gave me a spirit, he gave me a bat, and he gave me the Viper. Yeah.
Okay. It's always been something that I love drawing attention to, is the fact that your reference for Mainframe has always been his 25th anniversary re-release. They renamed him Dataframe, I think, for some rights issue. But he has the most unique helmet. And I've often joked with Chief that it looks like, I don't know, something from Transformers, like Rodimus Prime's kind of bonce or head. It's kind of got vents on it and like a ridge along the top. The vintage original Mainframe has a far more rounded helmet. But obviously the one that fell in front of your peepers is that Dataframe update.
Yeah, and I think that was the reference drawing that I was using. I think because I was using the Marvel one or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then when I got they reissued the yearbooks or whatever, IDW put out it was all the model sheets from the cartoons. And they put it out in 2 volumes. But the Mainframe in that one has the more rounded helmet.
Yes.
Yeah. So as time went on, I would bring in some of the extra details that were in the model sheet, but the rounded helmet always looked like one of those Spaceball helmets or something, the guys on the station of Spaceball. And it was just too round.
Yeah.
It always felt like they were just wearing a hollowed out bowling ball or something on their head. And it was just...
Damn it, I will never look at that vintage Mainframe the same way again.
Interestingly, when Andy Wildman came on, I'm pretty sure he mentioned that he was just getting sent boxes and boxes of toys from Hasbro for reference.
They don't do it then. Yeah,
I was going to say, back when I guess the book was probably selling more and it was a Marvel property, then
toys were selling more.
Yeah.
There was a late boom in G.I. Joe when Kirk Ziggian got brought back into the fold as the sort of the marketing guy. The sales had dropped off in the late 80s, but he managed to nurse it back to a very viable brand between 1990 and 1992. And then it died because of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and all that jazz. But the bottom line is, when Andy Wildman came on, G.I. Joe was back.
Yeah.
Big time.
Couple of questions from me. One is, are there any particular characters or comic book series that would be not necessarily a dream job, but something that you'd really like to sink your teeth into or have a go at, at any particular publisher?
When they reissued Swashbucklers, they did a Kickstarter for it. And that was Jackson Geiss's book that he worked on with Bill Mantlo.
Yeah.
I loved that series as a kid. I just thought it was the coolest thing because it was kind of like steampunk before steampunk. It was an outer space series, but they had ships that looked like the old kind of frigates and stuff with the sails.
Yeah.
And I loved that book. And I wanted to be on it so bad. But when they did a new set of issues, they picked some guy from Italy, and the writer was actually a screenwriter from Hollywood. And so I didn't get on that book. I still wanted to do that.
Okay.
And just treated it as a straightforward sci-fi, fully detailed, developed out Star Wars typey world. But yeah, that was my dream job.
That'd be cool. And then also, just wanted to talk very briefly about the Beano, because this is the reference we're making only about Nasher, the dog, which is Dennis the Menace's dog, and not to be confused with the US version of Dennis the Menace. I'm talking about the original Dennis the Menace.
Smack talk.
Which is, I used to get the Beano comic as a kid, weekly comic, and I must have had, 500, 600 issues of that. And
which is 6 months worth?
Which is, the productivity was off the charts on that comic. But
South African kids had to make do with the annuals. A Beano and a Dandy every year.
Yeah, Beano and Dandy. Yeah. Dandy was quality. For me, I think you're either a Beano kid or a Dandy kid, and I was definitely Beano, but I would still keep an eye on the dandy and get the annuals for the dandy. But
it came down to whether or not you preferred Dennis the Menace or Desperate Dan.
Yeah, I mean, now Desperate Dan is a monster. I love Desperate Dan. But
Me too.
You obviously done quite a lot of work on that franchise now, on that property. How did that come about? And is that stuff that you enjoy?
It is something I enjoy. I actually got work with that because of Ned Hartley, who writes Banana Man.
Okay, yeah.
Ned was one of my editors at Titan. He was actually kind of like my first editor in the sense of like I was working with him. And he and I just kind of became friends. And when I went over to London for the first time since like high school or whatever, he was having his engagement party that weekend and invited my wife and I to come. And we went and hung out with him. And that's where I met Andrew James, who is the person I introduced to his wife. And that's Steve White, who used to be a colorist at Marvel UK and worked on Transformers. So anyway, but it was through Ned, who was writing Banana Man, and they had an artist that had to go on maternity leave. And he was like, well, I know a guy that could do it, because he did Shrek for Titan. And so I sent them some samples, and they gave me some work. And so I've been more of like a fill-in artist for them, like if somebody's on maternity leave or gets sick. Like I just did Bastard Kids because Sutherland was ill.
Okay.
And now I'm doing Tricky Dicky right now, and the editor, they call it editor reader, where they have like kids send in their photos.
Right.
So I'm doing that, and then I'm also doing work on the Dandy annuals. I'm doing Jocks and Geordies.
Oh yeah, cool. You mentioned that. Yeah. For those that don't know, probably a bit late. We should have upfronted this. These are all ages comics, by the way, from the UK. So go and check those out. The Beano and the Dandy and all that good stuff there. But excellent. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence on this fine day, Mr. Gallant. It's been an absolute joy to have you on, pick your brains, talk about the issues. Maybe we can get you back on the show at some point when we come to the closing issues of your run on Real American Hero, or when we discuss $6 Million Man, which we will do at some point. We can get you back on the show.
I'd love to. It's been fun.
Fantastic. Where can the fine folks who are listening check out your current works, and what have you got going on in the pipeline that people need to check out from you?
They can find me online at just slgallant.com. I have an Instagram, which I think is just SL Gallant Artist. But right now, it's pretty much I'm working on Beano. There's some other stuff that I'm talking to people about, but nothing's been nailed down. So that's the easiest place to find me right now. And I post drawings that I do and some of the sneak peeks at the Beano stuff and various superhero drawings on my Instagram and Twitter account. I'm pretty easy to find.
Cool. Good stuff. You can find us in all the usual places. That's Talking_Joe on Twitter, Talking Joe Comics on Instagram, TalkingJoeComics@gmail.com, or Talking Joe, a G.I. Joe podcast on the Facebook. Where can the good people find you, Mr. S. Jub 7?
G.I. Joeberg, man, because I'm into G.I. Joe and I come from Johannesburg.
Whoa!
Not really, I come from Cape Town. Boom! Yep, but with all that said and done,
we'll catch you down the road.
We've been talking Joe.
And we're all out of Joes, especially Snake Eyes. Sorry.
Yo, Joe!